We will shatter the ideal image of castles. We will not talk about knights and kings, but about the skeletons ground and buried to become part of the foundations, and about the silent hell lived by the builders and the besieged. Get ready to hear the voice of the stone as it narrates the tragedies of history.
As for you, before we begin this deep and calm journey, leave your mark on our channel by hitting the subscribe and like buttons so you can easily find our content next time. And now, take a deep breath, close your eyes, lie down, and let sleep creep in.
Whenever we look at an ancient castle, one question comes to our minds: how were these towering edifices built that still stand today? It is a testament to a bygone era, an era where its foundations were laid not by modern machines, but by human determination alone. In the Middle Ages, the castle was more than just a building. It was the center of power and the refuge of safety and the heart of life. Building a castle of this magnitude was not an easy matter. It required long years of careful planning and continuous hard work. In this documentary, we will dive quietly into the details of that amazing process. We will reveal how the builders chose their strategic locations, how they designed their walls and towers to be impregnable fortresses, and where the raw materials came from that formed their entity. And most importantly, who were the men and women who dedicated their lives to constructing these historical symbols. Castles in the Middle Ages were not just huge stone structures, but were a tangible embodiment of power, a fulcrum of rule, and a last bastion against the tyranny of the enemy. The study of building these immortal edifices reveals to us the depth of strategic thought that preceded every stone laid, and a deep vision of the terrain and natural factors. The first essential step in any castle building project was selecting the site. This choice was never random, but was the result of careful and deliberate analysis of several critical factors. The first engineering teams were supported by long military experience, spending weeks and months exploring potential areas. The top priority was for sites that provided natural defensive superiority: high hills, rocky plateaus overlooking valleys, or even steep slopes that form natural protection from at least three sides. These geographical characteristics were not just points on a map, but were formidable barriers that significantly reduced the need to build huge defensive walls in all directions, and provided a wide view for miles around the castle, granting the defenders an early warning of any enemy movement. And it was not just about defense, for the ideal site had to ensure the existence of a constant and reliable water source, pure natural springs, or the possibility of digging wells deep enough to meet the needs of the garrison and the castle inhabitants during long periods of siege. Water was the indispensable artery that determined the castle's ability to withstand and survive. In addition to that, the proximity to raw material sources was a vital factor. Stone quarries suitable for building and abundant forests that provided the timber necessary for roofs and doors and drawbridges. Transporting these heavy materials over long distances was an arduous and extremely costly process. Therefore, the site that combines defensive advantages and the availability of resources was considered the real treasure. And so, before the first wall rose or a single stone was hewn, The castle was already born in the strategist's mind as a firm and carefully planned decision, determining its fate for decades to come. This is the quiet foundation upon which the greatest war edifices in the Middle Ages were based, after choosing the strategic location with extreme care. The next and most complex stage in the castle building process begins, the design stage. This stage was not just drawings on papyrus or parchment, but required a deep understanding of military engineering and material science, and precise knowledge of the strengths and weaknesses in the fortifications existing at that time. The castle's architect, who is sometimes known by the title Master of Works or Master Builder, was the mastermind behind this edifice. He would sit in isolation and quiet, drawing and planning for long hours, relying on his experience and previous war experiences. He would determine the general shape of the castle, whether it would be square, rectangular, or oval to fit the terrain, and whether it would follow a central design or be built in multiple stages. The basic principle governing the design was multi-layered defense. This means that the castle would not be just a single wall, but a series of successive defensive barriers. The huge outer walls surrounded by wet or dry moats, followed by a higher and more fortified inner wall. Then the towers strategically distributed to provide observation points and effective arrow launching. Every part of the design was placed with extreme care to serve a specific defensive purpose. The gates, for example, were not just entrances, but were designed as deadly traps containing massive iron gates dropping from above. Cutting gates and narrow passages allow arrows and stones to be launched at any intruder. The towers were designed with very narrow windows and spiral passages difficult to storm, and provided ideal platforms for projectiles. And even the inner courtyard of the castle, known as the bailey, was an integral part of the defensive plan. It was designed to accommodate soldiers and store supplies and provide a safe space for inhabitants in times of siege. And all this careful planning was accomplished in silence and deliberation, before turning into orders for the builders who would bring the materials and start work. This quiet and well-studied design is what gave castles their legendary ability to withstand and turn them from mere buildings into symbols of determination and historical resilience. It is a testament to the ingenuity of the minds that designed them in a time when security was made with stone and thought. After the vision of the castle was established in the design, it turned from mere lines on paper into a plan requiring large-scale execution. Building a great castle was not a solitary act or the effort of a few men, but required a massive mobilization of resources, not only of stone, wood, and iron, but more importantly, a whole army of manpower working in silence and dedication around the clock. At the heart of this huge project stood the master builder or the master mason, who is the expert responsible for supervising every aspect of construction. Under his command worked countless skilled and unskilled workers, each performing a vital role in this slow construction symphony. There were the stone cutters who spent their days in quarries, carving huge rocks and removing excess layers from them to form transportable blocks. This was an arduous task, requiring immense physical strength and inexhaustible patience, as stones were broken manually using wedges and hammers before being carefully transported to the construction site. This work was underground, out of sight, but it was vital to ensure the castle's stability for centuries to come. After the foundations, the walls begin to rise. The skilled masons placed every stone in its place with extreme precision, using simple tools like hammers and chisels and primitive water levels. They bound the stones together with strong mortar, often a mixture of sand, lime and water, to make a solid cohesive layer. The walls were usually built with two outer layers of precisely cut stones, with the gaps between them filled with small rubble and mortar, which increases the wall's strength and durability and resistance to shocks. With the rising of the walls, there was a dire need for huge wooden scaffolds built and dismantled and rebuilt with every new height. These scaffolds were not just platforms for workers, but were a complex network of wooden beams, allowing workers and materials to reach towering heights safely. Lifting large stones to these heights was done using pulleys, ropes, and lifting wheels powered by animals or by multiple human hands in a slow and repetitive process. Every part of the castle was built with methodology and patience. Circular or square towers are constructed layer after layer to become advanced defense points, secret passages inside the walls, narrow slits for launching arrows, and machicolations for pouring hot oil or stones on attackers. All these details were executed with extreme precision during the construction stage. The hard and continuous work over long years under the burning sun or in the freezing winter cold is what turned drawings and designs into tangible reality. Every castle was a silent story told through its walls and towers, a testament to human patience and the art of building that challenged time. After the towering walls and impregnable towers were completed, and after the castle's outer structure took its majestic shape, a stage no less important than the previous ones begins. The stage of transforming the silent stone mass into a place for life, a place pulsating with the quiet of daily routine behind fortified walls. It is the stage of internal construction and equipping living and functional spaces. The inner courtyard of the castle, or what is known as the bailey, was the beating heart of daily life. Around this courtyard, the main residences for the lord and his entourage and barracks for soldiers and huge kitchens were built, which witnessed constant movement in exhausted silence to prepare food, in addition to stables and storehouses and small craft workshops. The main building in any castle was the last stronghold, or the keep, donjon. This huge tower was considered the last refuge in case external defenses were breached. Inside it were bedrooms, reception halls, and perhaps a small chapel for the ruling family. Its walls were exceptionally thick, and its windows few and very small to provide the maximum degrees of protection. Life inside it was characterized by quietness and self-reliance, especially in times of siege. Castles were not just military fortresses, but were also administrative and economic centers, where surrounding lands were managed and taxes collected and courts held. There were rooms dedicated to documents and records, and others for quiet negotiations between lords. This diversity of functions made the castle a microcosm standing on its own, and there were other life details added with care. Deep water wells dug inside the courtyard to ensure continuous supply, large bread ovens filling the place with a warm scent. Even simple bathrooms and primitive sewage systems, which were planned carefully to ensure some means of comfort and cleanliness in a time when these luxuries were rare. And so slowly and deliberately, the solid stone mass turned into a complete castle ready to receive life inside its walls. Every corner and every room and every corridor was designed and placed to serve a purpose and to provide a safe and quiet haven in a troubled world. It is a testament to human adaptation and the ability to create a space of stillness and safety, even in the most difficult conditions. With the completion of the general structure of the castle and preparing its internal spaces for daily life, the work did not end at this limit, for there was an additional layer of complexity and details added to enhance the defensive ability of the castle to become an impregnable fortress, standing with permanent vigilance in the silence of its high walls. These minute details are what distinguish the castle from just a large building. Among the most important of these additions were the water or dry moats surrounding the castle from every side. These moats were not just barriers, but were designed with sufficient depth and width to make approaching the walls a near impossible matter for attackers, especially those which were filled with water to form a huge natural obstacle. And the drawbridges were the only means for entry and exit, raised and lowered with caution when needed, which adds another layer of safety. Along the walls and towers, there were narrow and long openings known as arrow slits or loopholes. These openings were designed precisely to allow archers to launch their arrows at enemies with relative safety from inside the castle, while providing maximum protection for them. Their view of the enemies was wide, while finding them from the outside was extremely difficult. Also, the towers contained murder holes or death holes at their bottom, which are openings in the floor of the upper stories located above the main entrances. Through these openings, defenders could throw stones, pour boiling oil, or even launch projectiles at any enemy managing to reach below the gate, making storming it a nightmare for the attacker. And to enhance vigilance, there were small guard towers scattered along the walls, known as bartizans or machicolations. They provided additional observation points and allowed guards to monitor the outer perimeter of the castle precisely in the night and day, to ensure that the castle remains a silent castle, but always vigilant against any potential danger. These multiple defensive layers, designed with extreme care, are what gave medieval castles their legendary reputation as impregnable fortresses. Money was spent on materials and workers' wages and transport costs, which placed immense pressure on local and international economies in some cases. Any shortage in funding meant stopping construction or slowing it down significantly, and perhaps the castle remaining incomplete for years. Even after the completion of construction, periodic maintenance of the castle was a continuous challenge. Walls that crack, timbers that rot, and corridors needing restoration, all that required effort and money to preserve these great edifices in their best conditions. The castles we see standing today are a witness to the resilience and drive of those who built them and maintained them, despite all the hardships they faced in silence. The resilience of castles today is not only a reflection of their engineering strength, but is also a reminder of the human echo that faced major challenges for the sake of creating a symbol of safety and power. A quiet but epic struggle between human will and the cruelty of conditions, engraved in every stone of the stones of these immortal edifices. After centuries of time and after castles played their role in human history as impregnable fortresses and centers of rule, they stood tall to become a silent witness to bygone eras. The noise of battles no longer echoes around its walls, nor the clamor of soldiers fills its courtyard, but it became a home for deep calm and whispers of the wind, telling stories about the past. The castles we see today, whether they are majestic ruins whispering memories of the past, or carefully preserved edifices testifying to the greatness of construction, are an integral part of our historical heritage. Every stone in them carries the print of an ancient working hand and tells the story of a strategic decision or a human challenge that was overcome. It is a reminder of the patience of generations that preceded us and their ability to construct what seemed impossible with simple tools and steely determination. For in the silence of its walls, the contemplator can hear the echo of knight's steps and see the shadows of lords who took fateful decisions in them, and feel the presence of women and children who sheltered behind its walls in times of danger. The castle became a landmark, not only telling history, but raising questions about the lives of those who lived in its shadow, and about a world where security was bought at a high price of effort and patience. Today, these castles are tourist destinations attracting millions. People visit them not only to marvel at their amazing architectural engineering, but to touch history with their hands and feel the fragrance of the past wafting from every corner. They are silent lessons in history, teaching us about the human struggle for survival and about architectural art transcending times. And while the sun rises and sets on these ancient edifices, castles remain a witness that the greatest achievements are built with patience and dedication. It stands as an eternal symbol of resilience, teaching us that apparent calm can hide behind it countless stories of struggle and creativity, and that the past, even if silent, does not stop telling its immortal tales to anyone who listens. In a world where rhythm accelerates and technology changes in the blink of an eye, ancient castles remain standing tall, as if they are silent bridges connecting us to a distant past. Their function is no longer defensive as it was, and no longer refuges for rulers and soldiers, but their presence in the modern scene raises deep questions about their contemporary value and their role in our lives today. Today, many of these castles have turned into living museums, receiving visitors from all parts of the world, where cultural and art exhibitions are held and historical events reenacted, and some have turned into luxury hotels or destinations for special events, giving them a new life and a different function fitting the requirements of the era. This quiet transformation allows these edifices to continue telling their stories, but in a modern way, in the hollow of these thick walls designed to protect lives from swords and arrows. Many find today a refuge from the noise of modern life, for the silence wrapping its corridors and the cold air flowing through its passages provide a space for contemplation and calm, away from the noise of cities and the glare of screens. It offers a unique experience to disconnect from contemporary reality and immerse in the simplicity and power of the past. Castles also inspire modern art and literature and architecture, for they are an inexhaustible source of legendary tales and romantic novels and historical drama, keeping their stories alive in the collective consciousness. Also, the principles of resilience and durability and strategic planning used in their construction still inspire contemporary engineers and architects in their search for designs that last and resist the challenges of time. And in the midst of our striving to move forward, castles remind us that history is not just a narration of past events, but is an integral part of our identity and a source of wisdom and inspiration. It stands as a quiet symbol of authenticity and stability in an ever-changing world, offering us a chance to connect with our ancestors and to contemplate human ability to build what is great and long-lasting. And so castles continue telling their silent stories, not only as relics from the past, but as a living part of our present and a quiet message for the future that patience and determination can construct a legacy that does not die. After the completion of the castle's construction and fortification, it was no longer just a silent defensive structure, but became a society standing on its own, pulsating with a daily rhythm of life and work behind its impregnable walls. Life inside the castle was a unique blend of military routine and civil activities, and constant preparation for any emergency. Dawn in the castle began early, tower guards watching the horizon in silence and vigilance, while kitchens begin preparing breakfast for the Lord and his entourage and soldiers. The smell of fresh bread and warm soup filled the atmosphere, signaling the start of a new day of tasks and responsibilities. During the day, the castle witnessed constant but organized movement. Soldiers training in the inner courtyard, polishing their skills in using the sword and bow and spear. Craftsmen working in their workshops, blacksmiths repairing armor and weapons, and carpenters preparing wood for maintenance or expansion. There were also continuous maintenance tasks for walls and towers and moats to ensure the castle's permanent readiness. As for the lord or commander, he spent most of his time managing the affairs of the castle and lands belonging to it. He received visitors and issued orders and supervised storehouses, which were filled with supplies of grain and dried meat and water, in anticipation of any siege that might last long. The great dining hall was the center of social life, where banquets and quiet meetings were held and stories and news told. Even children had a role in this miniature society. They learned basic skills and supervised animals in stables or helped in household chores. Their lives were surrounded by the castle walls, which provided safety for them, but also defined their world. And with the coming of the evening, the castle drowned in relative quiet. Torches are lit, and gates closed, and guards double their vigilance. Sounds of life faded gradually to make way for the silence of the night, broken only by the sound of the wind or the rustling of distant tree leaves in a scene reflecting the confidence and safety provided by these great edifices for their inhabitants. The basic strategy of siege was based on imposing a strangling ring around the castle to prevent the arrival of supplies and reinforcements. This silent siege aimed to exhaust defenders and drain their supplies of food and water and ammunition, forcing them to surrender in the end without the need for a direct storming, which might be costly in human losses. But when the silent siege fails to achieve its goal, medieval armies resorted to destructive engineering innovations. Huge catapults known as trebuchets were built away from the range of castle arrows. then used to launch massive stone projectiles weighing hundreds of kilograms, aiming to destroy walls and towers. The sound of their launching represented a signal of the start of a new stage of challenge. Also, there were huge mobile siege towers constructed to be higher than the castle walls, and pushed slowly towards it to enable soldiers to jump directly to the top. These towers required immense effort in building and moving them, and often were burnt by the defenders before reaching the goal. And it was not limited to the surface for attackers, sometimes resorted to digging tunnels under the castle walls, aiming to weaken foundations and bring down parts of the wall. This secret, silent work underground required great skill and extreme courage, for at any moment the tunnel might collapse on the heads of the diggers. In return, castles were designed to face these challenges, for their thick walls and deep moats and converging towers were all means to thwart the efforts of the besiegers, and garrisons trained to repel attacks and repair damages and keep morale high under continuous pressure. The story of siege in the Middle Ages is the story of continuous competition between defensive and destructive creativity. Every attempt to storm a castle and every resistance from inside it formed another chapter in the record of human struggle, told quietly through the ruins of those fortresses that stood or fell before these massive challenges.